This conference will now be recorded.
Yes.
Great. Well, we are all good to go, so take it away.
Okay. Yes. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our VSC webinar for today. It's good to see everybody on here. Uh, real quick intro for Victoria, because I think she'll do a better job of talking about what she's going to be covering here today on personal branding than I'll be able to. But just wanted to share some fun facts with you that she shared with me. And I didn't get a chance to ask her exactly why she has a problem with chocolate and ketchup, but those are not, certainly not together, of course, but she'll have to give us a little explanation on that and how and when you lived, got you over to Okinawa, Japan, which is something that, I think some of the military folks that might be on, or anybody that's affiliated with the military, might have some experience, but I imagine most of our students don't. So that's very interesting. And then, of course, the fact that you're not an engineer, yet you work in the AEC industry. So that that's, I think, another thing that that our students would appreciate learning about. So I will turn it over to you, and thank you again for offering to present to us here today.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. It really is a pleasure to be here, and I'm so excited to see so many students and individuals logging on. As Eddie said, tell us where you're from in the chat box and what you're studying. I'm really curious as to what everybody's studying. I did see we do have a civil engineer, Wendy. Thank you for logging in. And others we got a couple people in Chicago. So definitely let me know. If you guys have any questions or anything throughout the whole presentation, feel free to chime in, unmute yourself, turn on your camera, do it in the chat box, whatever. I'm here to help you guys to understand personal branding a little bit more and what that means and how you can use it as you progress through your college career and go into your company. So thank you, Andrea, for that introduction. And yeah, I am not a fan of chocolate, never have been. It's too sweet. I don't like a lot of sugar. Never liked ketchup, have no idea why. Never did anything to me. It's not like it picked a fight with me and I lost. So I'm not a fan. And Okinawa was fun. I was there because my father was former Air Force. I had the opportunity to go, and I ended up staying on my own for a couple of years and then moving back. Unfortunately, 2008 kind of ruined that for me staying any longer, so I moved back to here. And as for ending up in the AEC industry, architecture, engineering, construction industry, I did not go to school for business development or marketing, business and sales to work in the AEC industry. I fell into this industry, and my first internship was at a company called Schweitzer Engineering Laboratories up in Washington. And I got the chance to work with some electrical engineers and really learned how passionate engineers can be about what they do. And I was drawn to that passion. And it makes it easier to do my job, which is marketing, business development, and sales, when I'm working with people who are really passionate and excited about what they're doing. So that's why I jumped into this industry 8 years ago, and I have stayed, and I will stay as long as they'll have me. So that's where I started in the AEC industry. As for not being technical also had its challenges, and this is what led me to developing my own personal brand. At the time, I thought it was marketing myself because I had to overcome a lot of stigma and a lot of things that were against me because I'm not technical. So I really need to know my stuff. So in order to do that, I started formulating my personal brand. And again, at the time, I just thought I was marketing myself and my capabilities so that I could help my firm set themselves up for success and help me set myself up for success in my firm and my career. So I started working on that, and it really took hold when a couple of years in, I was sitting there at a conference and talking to somebody about the challenges with infrastructure and road infrastructure. And somebody asked me what kind of engineering degree I had. Was I transportation or was I a traffic engineer? And I laughed because I wasn't any of those things. And I said, I've done it. I have really gotten my brand established of being an expert in my industry and being able to connect people with to their solutions for their problems. So that's what my personal brand started off at being. Now, I want to know what you guys really want to learn today, because branding, it's more than just being an Instagram influencer. There are so many things that come into to personal branding. I'm not a fan of the term personal branding. It's the presence. It's your presence. It's everything about you, and it's what's going to help you set yourself up for success in a career. It's what's going to help you network. It's what's going to help you find a job. So what is it that you guys want to learn today, and what questions are you hoping have answered? And I know you don't know what you don't know. Fill in the chat box, throw it in there what you think, or please feel free to unmute yourself and let me know. So I'll give it a second for you guys to share what it is you might be wanting to get out of today's webinar. I don't want this to be just a one-way conversation. I want to make sure you guys get everything out of it that you possibly can for spending this afternoon with me. Not seeing anything, so I'm going to go right into it. Please still feel free to put in there what you guys are trying to learn or looking for. Common challenges with personal branding. Got it. So let me write that down, because I am actually going to be covering that in a little bit. I will say the common challenges with personal branding is your own challenges, your own perception, because a lot of people think personal branding is self-involved and it's self-promotion and it's gross and it's just nobody likes it, it's uncomfortable. And it's so much more than that, and it's really kind of changing your own perspective. I would say the other challenges is people trying to be something that they're not. So reality is, I want you guys to form your own personal brand, and it's going to be the best version of yourself. And there's a little bit of that. I hate the term fake it till you make it. But there is a little bit of that comes into, like, you are acting like the way you want to be, and it's going to help you be that person. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. But what is a personal brand? Like, ultimately, what is it? I really like this quote. This quote actually came from 1997, so personal branding has been around for a while. This is a great piece of advice for anybody when you're starting to develop your career and when you're starting to develop your network, because we all have mentors. We all have people that advise us. You are the CEO of your brand, of your company. And I really want you guys to consider what your board of executive leaders looks like. Who is your advisors? Who are your cheerleaders? So those are the people that advise you on Your Name Inc. Victoria Inc. has 5 different people that I go to for advice. And those people help me navigate, and they all provide very different perspectives, and they're in the industry and they're not in the industry. So it's really important for you to start kind of thinking the advisors you have are helping you with You Inc. So keep that in mind. And that's why I really love this quote, because it really is powerful when you start thinking of it that way. Your personal brand isn't just about telling people who you are. It's about building those relationships and others who share the same interests and values as you have. By having a presence that reflects your personal and virtual presence, then you can help create that common ground for others to connect to. And that's the difficulty a lot of us are having these days, is creating those virtual connections. And this is how relationships are formed without you really having to talk to people either. So it's that common ground, those connections. And that, when you highlight that about yourself, i.e. your brand, you're creating the opportunity for those connections. So that's really important. When you have a well-defined brand, it helps you identify and showcase your best self, understand your strengths and weaknesses, stand out from your peers in competition. And this is really important when you're submitting resumes. You have to stand out, because there are so many other people that are submitting resumes for those internships or those jobs right when you get out of college. It's the same when it goes to applying for scholarships. You have to present yourself as the best version or the best option. So your personal brand helps you do that. It helps you build your network and establish some credibility. It demonstrates your value through your actions, and it elevates your social proof, solidify your niche, conveys your message and values, and it helps you to be more confident. I have to say, it helps me be more confident. It helps me demonstrate my value. It's really been a guiding thing. My brand is my foundation, and everything I do kind of comes back to that foundation. So what do you use a brand for? So what are the applications? So for you guys, you're going to be seeking out jobs, you're going to be seeking out internships, you're going to be seeking out a career after you graduate. Then when you're in that job, you're going to have to eventually become that industry expert, that professional expert for promotions, because when you're in a job, you still have to present yourself in the best possible way so that you can get those raises, you can get those bonuses, you can get those promotions. It will also help you if you take that path towards leadership. It'll help you kind of understand what your leadership style is and how to connect with people. It's really interesting to see the evolution of somebody's personality. And a lot of people say, well, it's just your reputation. It's so much more than just your reputation. So your personal brand takes a lot of different things and it helps you organize it and refocus it. And I'll share a lot more about how to do that here in a little bit. People know you before they even meet you. So that's the other portion of your brand, is your presence. Like I said earlier, your virtual presence. People are Googling you, you're Googling other people. And I know a lot of people say, well, I asked the hiring manager and they said that they don't Google people. Well, I am not often the hiring manager. However, I am an advisor. I am somebody that provides feedback. I am somebody who is looked to participate in the interview process. I don't have the ultimate say, but I have a lot of influence. So I will actually Google people and see what I can find out about them, if they're going to fit our work culture, if they're going to fit with the team, what are their ambitions, is it going to make sense for what we're looking for? I will do that, and then that influences my decision and how I advise somebody else. So keep that in mind, is that while the recruiter or the hiring manager may not be Googling you, there are plenty of other people that are going to be involved in that hiring decision that you will never get to meet, and they are Googling you. So keep that in mind, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But you guys need to make sure that you're keeping your personal presence, your virtual presence in check. And I know that's a little bit difficult. So if you guys have specific questions about that, please ask me that, because I want to make sure I'm helping you guys out as much as possible. So when I talked about taking all these different elements, your personal brand, it's your goals, your reputation, your values, your image. So your virtual presence image, your personal image. So for example, my background is pretty clean. And I know for a lot of people being in this virtual space like we've been in, it's been like, whatever, I'm going to take a call wherever I can. I'm not going to worry about what's going on behind me. Well, this is a big deal if you're going through an interview. It's a big deal if you're at work and you're trying to gain the respect from your colleagues. So you do need to take that into consideration, what you're wearing and what's in your background. Those are big things. And those are a lot of things that people say, well, it doesn't matter that much. I guarantee you it matters quite a bit. So that's part of your image. Your reputation, again, what I might find online, what people might be saying about you, those references, those advisors that you have and what they can share about you, those are your reputation, your goals. That feeds into your personal brand, and what your values are also feeds into your personal brand. So there's an easy way to kind of start developing your personal brand. Again, I know you guys aren't very chatty in the chat box, but is anybody familiar with D&D? If you guys have you played? Do you know what it is? All right. Yes. Yeah, I got a yes. Okay, so D&D. D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, you have a character sheet. And when I play, I have to be really careful to make sure I make decisions and I do things that are in line with my character, because sometimes you create a character that's totally off the wall and nothing like you are. Well, your personal brand, you're going to create a character sheet. Obviously, it needs to be a little bit closer to who you are as a person, and you're going to do some deep digging, but that's kind of what your personal brand is. And every time I need to make a major decision like changing a job or taking a job, if I'm looking at an employer, do their goals and values align with my goals and values? I refer back to my personal brand sheet to make sure that they do align, because the worst thing is to start at an employing company or start employment at a company and just feel like it's wrong. So this helps you to identify those types of companies and to know how to make good decisions based on yourself and align those with a company. So those thoughtful questions that everybody wants you to ask in an interview, this helps you. Like, I take a lot of pride in this area. Is that something that your company is concerned in? For me personally, I'm Native American. That's a really big part of who I am. That's a big part of my brand. And I need to know that when I'm at a company, that's something that they're interested in, willing to allow me to kind of incorporate, whether it's my working style of storytelling, because that's a big part of Native American culture, is storytelling, or if they're interested and willing to participate in Native American societies and activities. So I am actually getting my company to have a booth at what's called ACES. It's American Indian Society Engineering, American Indian Science and Engineering Society, and they have a conference every year. And I've actually asked my company to do it, and they're going to do it. My company also supports SME. SME is really important to me as well, because I'm really fascinated and interested on the future of American infrastructure. So that's something that they're also invested in. So a lot of the things I want and need to be happy, my goals and my values, align with this company. And that's how my branding sheet helps. So let's break a couple of these down. A couple of them are really self-explanatory, so I don't need to break them down. So first, core values. This is pretty simple. You guys see it with other companies. All companies have a list of core values. I want you to think of what your core values are, because that helps you align with what a company focuses on, what you're going to focus on. So you can use this list. You can Google core values and come up with a whole bunch of different words. Keep in mind that while some words may, you may tag a certain connotation to a word or a certain representation of a word, somebody else may interpret it differently. So just kind of keep that in mind, that when you're picking a word, like I'm very ambitious. Some people think the word ambitious is bad. I don't. I love that I'm an ambitious person. I'm driven, I'm goal-oriented, and that is who I am. But I also am aware that when I tell people I'm ambitious, that can scare them a little. So just be aware of those words and how they affect other people. Your goals, be honest with your goals. Is it to make a lot of money? Is it to run the world? Is it to make a difference? What are those goals? And this is not something that you just write down real fast. Like, you have to spend some time and really think about it. And sitting around and thinking about ourselves is kind of intimidating and maybe even a little bit boring, or like, I don't know, it's just not everybody's jam. But it's one of those things that you really have to consider investing time in, because it's going to help you when you're developing your resume later. And it's going to help you when you're identifying those companies you want to apply to. And when you're writing that cover letter to say, my goals align with your goals, and here's why, it's going to help you in the long run. So the time you put into this, the more you'll get out of it later. So on that sheet, when we talk about hard and soft skills, think of the engine as your hard skills and the color and interior as your soft skills. One thing I found with a lot of the young engineers and technical staff, planners, architects that I got to work with at my engineering companies that I've worked with in the past is they come out of school and they really lack the soft skills. So if you guys can start investing some time on identifying those weaknesses that you may have, you can set yourself apart again from the competition, and you can set yourself on a faster track to more responsibility, possibly promotions when you're actually in your companies. So really pay attention on what your hard skills are and your soft skills are, and don't neglect those soft skills. And I'm talking knowing how to write a good email and putting a good subject line, and knowing how introductions happen at a meeting. Those kind of things you can ask somebody. I had a lot of them come up to me when they first started and ask me, and I would run them through the whole gamut of like, this is how you do formal meetings, and this is how the introduction structure goes. There's a lot of YouTube videos out about that stuff too. So definitely do your research to help strengthen your soft skills so that when you're in those situations, you can be in them confidently and you can set yourself apart from your peers. What does all of that information do? So I'm going to go back real quick. At the very bottom, you'll see this item called your value statement. So all of the stuff you're putting together leads to your value statement. Now, my value statement, this is at the top of my resume. This is at the top of my LinkedIn profile. This is how I took all of Victoria.Mechtly and summed it up. And so when I say I am a lifelong learner with passion for helping teams succeed, that means that I am always out there learning new things, educating myself, and I am trying to educate and help others. That is important to me. My enthusiasm for business storytelling and adaptability has enabled me to develop and maintain relationships. I'm going to pause there. Business storytelling, Native American storytelling, again, that's how I incorporated that into my branding statement. Adaptability, I'm a military brat. I've had to be adaptable and a chameleon, and that's how I incorporated that part of who I am into my branding statement. Create, then implement strategic plans, pursuits, lead, and develop. This is what they're getting. These are the actions that I do, my soft skills, my hard skills. I create and implement strategic plans. I lead and develop winning proposals and statements of qualifications. That's hard and soft skills being put out right there in front of them. This is really beneficial, again, when you're putting together that resume, because at the top, the objective statement is, you know, I want to be an engineer at your firm. No, that's boring. Nobody cares about that. You need to put something that's going to set yourself apart, and using your personal brand to create a statement is more powerful than any statement that says, I want to be this, because of that. So really kind of think about that, the use that you'll get out of this statement. And so where do you start, right? So you did all that stuff. What next? Well, you need to start doing an assessment. And I've asked people to kind of provide me with some words that describe me, because on the sheet, there's ways for you to incorporate how people perceive you. So you can ask your friends and family, you can ask your colleagues, like, if you had 3 words to describe me, what would they be? The other thing is a Marcus Buckingham standout assessment. I really like this, and it's not your typical Myers-Briggs. It's a little bit different. Marcus Buckingham actually helped develop the Myers-Briggs, and then he wanted to focus more on how your strengths are important and to focus on your strengths to compensate your weaknesses, because you shouldn't spend time and energy on your weaknesses. You should spend time on your strengths and how they make your weaknesses stronger. So I really like the Marcus Buckingham standout assessment. It also just helps kind of generate those ideas and understanding when you're creating your branding, your brand worksheet, your personal brand worksheet. That link is, I think Eddie's going to send out, I'll actually copy and paste this link if I can. I can't. That link should be in the PDF, and I think we're going to post it later. You can Google Marcus Buckingham Standout Assessment, look it up. It's free. You just got to put your email in, but it's really beneficial. I found a lot of benefit out of it. And then what does your actual footprint look like virtually? So first, I'm going to tell you guys, you got to do it in incognito mode. You know this because you don't want anything influencing your actual results. So do it in incognito mode. See what photos come up. That's the most important. Go through it. I typically don't go past the first page. I kind of stay within the first page. For you guys, it may be a little bit different, but you definitely want to go into the situation eyes wide open, knowing what's out there. Before I had my career, I actually had a whole bunch of really bad old tennis scores from my high school because they would be published in the newspaper. So that's interesting to see that. So you just never know what's going to come up. I have some things that pop up on here based on my Pinterest board or other things that I do. So just be cognizant of what is showing up based on your profile settings and all that. And you guys know how to change those privacy settings. And if you don't, look it up. But it's one of those things that you got to make sure that what's out there, they're going to be looking at, and that's going to be influencing their impression of who you are. Building your virtual presence takes a lot of time. It's not something done overnight. What you guys saw is something that I have worked years for. I've done presentations. I've done a lot of I've been active in Big Brothers and Big Sisters, nonprofit organizations. I've been active in SAME. All of these activities that I've participated in, all these things have enabled me to create a really strong presence online so that people always know who they're looking at and what's going on with me, and it's very professional. So that is something that I have done, and it's taken years, so it takes a lot of time, so keep that in mind. Again, when it comes to platforms, if you're going to influence your virtual search, something has to be public, and you need to determine what's going to be public. But I also want to say, know what community you want to be involved in and why. So for me, I'm only involved in Instagram and LinkedIn. So I have a Twitter, I don't use it. I have Facebook, I don't use it, but I make sure I keep it clean all the time. So I will say that for Instagram, it is very personal. I've got cat videos, I've got Native American artists that I follow. So it's all those things that I use to kind of keep up with what I'm interested in. And that's a very specific community. It's not exactly relevant to my professional life. LinkedIn, super relevant to my professional life. So I make sure I keep that focus on what I want to learn about. I keep it to 3 topics. I keep it to aerospace engineering, which is really important for me because I work with launch pad facilities. The designers, the engineers I work for do the launch pad facility designs. We work for a lot of the commercial aerospace companies. We work with NASA. So those are the things that I track on there. I track just general Department of Defense engineering type aerospace topics. They're commercial aerospace, Department of Defense is 2 different things. I make sure I know that so I know what I'm following. And then I also follow professional development because that's really important to me as well on LinkedIn. So you need to find your community, find those topics and make sure you're active with them, you're following them, you're liking them, and you're again, being engaged with them. I put a gamer on here because when I talk to people about finding their virtual communities, I always think back to the Halo days. Like when people were playing Halo, they were making friends across the world just with random people because they had a similar community to be engaged with. And I would like to think that Halo is one of the first communities, virtual communities that had such a strong presence, that had such a strong connection. People would play with each other for years before they actually met each other in person. So you need to find your community when it comes to this industry stuff, because that's who the people are going to lead you to jobs. Those are the people that you're going to get to network with. Those are the people that are going to give you advice and point you in the right direction when it comes to things that you need to do. So developing. Sorry, I think I meant to take this one out, but I'll go ahead and show it. So what are you seeking? What's important to you? Are you seeking relationships? Are you seeking to be seen as competent, or both? These are the 3 things that came up out of a study from I think it was University of Illinois Business School with some other universities when they talked to business professionals about their personal branding and what it did for them and how they accomplished that. So there were 3 things that came to the surface on what they were seeking, and that's what the people who had the most successful brands have identified. So you need to identify what those things are. You need to identify how you want to make people feel, because that's really important as well. Do you want them to feel comfortable around you? Do you want them to feel that they can rely on you? There are those feelings that you want to evoke, so that's going to impact how you write things. Your audience, again, be very mindful of your audience. If you're going to an interview at SpaceX, you probably shouldn't wear a suit and tie. That's not how they operate. But if you're going to go to a big company like Jacobs or AECOM, you should probably wear a jacket with a button up. That's a really good idea. So you have to consider who your audience is and what kind of presence and what kind of brand you have, and does it align? Because if it doesn't align, it's going to be a really difficult time for you to kind of make your way through that career, that starting part of your career. So to start, I'm going to encourage you guys, again, clean up your connections and add new ones. Update all of your profiles. Make sure you use the same photo if they're going to be public. If they're not going to be public, then you need to make sure they're cleaned up and make sure they're not public. And go beyond the like. So what does that mean? I'm going to show you guys real quick. So here's my LinkedIn. Number one, I'm going to encourage you guys to, obviously, if you don't have a LinkedIn, start your LinkedIn. Connect with anybody you know, anybody you've worked with, your parents, friends, your mentors, anybody you can. If you meet somebody, connect with them. If you meet me, connect with me. A lot of people, you guys have a real advantage. People aren't going to turn down students, college students. Like, I get rejected on LinkedIn all the time. Like, people won't connect with me unless they have a reason to. But students are a different thing. So just make sure you add a note when you're sending those connections. Just say, hey, I saw you work here. I'm just interested in the company as I'm navigating college and determining where I want to, apply for. So I was just interested if I could just like connect with you and learn more. People will connect with you if you send a note like that. So make sure you include notes with your connections. Sort your news feed on LinkedIn by recent. This is where I get a lot more information, because if I do top, it's the most liked. I don't care about the most liked. I need the latest and greatest news. So I need to know what's going on. So I always tell people to make sure you sort it by link, by recent. If you want to connect with somebody, but you're not ready to send that connection invite, I don't know Renato Camacho. I don't know him. So what am I going to do? I'm going to follow him. By clicking follow, I can see what he posts, what he does, and then I can comment on it and start an engaging conversation. And that's what I mean by going beyond the like. Like, what does that mean? Like, you can't just like something. Nobody's going to notice when you like something. People will notice when you comment on something. People will engage with you if you are engaging with them. So go beyond the like. That's my advice to you guys. Again, going back to the profile, my about me, again, I have that very clear. What am I doing? What am I all about? That is what is in here. And I put a lot of thought behind this, and I rewrite it all the time. But that's because being a virtual presence on LinkedIn is really important for my job. It might not be so much important for you right now, but it will be when you are looking for a job, and it will be later on down the line. So if you can go ahead and kind of get the ball started on that, it's really good for you. For you guys, you might not have a whole lot of job experience, and that's okay. You can put in other experience if you have led any clubs, if you've done anything, if you can add those in here as actual experience, and you can attach documents of successful events or successful projects, white papers you've written, any of those things. You can add those in here for people to review and read. I have a capabilities brochure so that people know what they can talk to me about, so I can go connect them with the engineers that design these amazing aerospace facilities. So that's what I have on mine, because that's relevant to me and my audience. Again, back to the audience, what's relevant to them. So that's what I mean by go beyond the like and updating your profiles. Next is you can really put yourself out there by creating new content. And to do that, you've got to start by creating a plan. I have a Google document of ideas that I want to write articles for. So what is it? What's the purpose of doing that? It's so that I don't forget, number one. Number two, it's going to create more generation of conversations. So I want to create conversations around insight, education, and personal stories and experiences. So I always have this document where I'm working on different articles, because that's how I'm going to get a bigger network virtually, because they're going to read that and they're going to engage with me. It's also going to really solidify what my brand is. So people are going to actively comment on things that I find interesting, and they're going to actively comment on the things that I am putting out there because it's interesting. And I'm going to re-engage with them. There's nothing worse than somebody that you comment on their post and they just don't reply. I cannot stand that. So if nobody replies, don't take hard feelings, just move on. it happens a lot. But if they do engage with you, then you have a window into a good connection virtually. Posting anxiety. I have really strong posting anxiety. That is why I've not written any articles yet. And I have this Google Doc of 7 pages of ideas and articles that are drafted, but I just have this posting anxiety. I used to have it about some other things because the concern was, is somebody going to make a comment about this and it's going to just ruin me? And I've gotten over that on posting in general, but it is a thing and you're not alone. But you have to do whatever it is that helps you get past it. I actually have Grammarly app on my phone. I have it on my computer. I pay for it because it is what gives me, yes, I'm talking about posting on LinkedIn. That's where I get my anxiety posting from, because that's where, sorry, Andy asked a really good question. That's where I get my posting anxiety from, because a lot of people are seeing it and it's a very professional forum. So if you post something on there that's not so professional, or misinterpreted or misspellings, because if you misspell something, people automatically think, oh, wow, she's not very good at her job because she's not reading it very closely. So that's where I get my posting anxiety from. So that's why I downloaded Grammarly, to make sure that I was using the right words and my punctuation was on point and my spelling was, checked off. So I wanted to make sure that I was doing everything I can to get rid of that anxiety. So that's why I did that. So I don't have anything else. I know it was a lot of information. I really want to know if you guys have questions, and if I was able to answer. I don't think anybody else put anything else in about what they wanted to learn. Again, feel free to unmute yourself, ask a question, type it in the box. That was kind of a drop off on my presentation. I didn't really scale it down. Sorry about that. Any questions, comments?
Hey, Victoria, I have a question. Do you find
Yeah.
that employers are recognizing the value of this, so that if you are online, it isn't seen as you're just surfing the web? I guess, what is the variations that you've seen of employers and their support of, spending time with your online presence?
So there is there are people out there that are going to say, you don't need to be on LinkedIn. You don't need to bother with that. And to me, you're always going to, how do I say this? Yes, there are people who are going to say, this is a waste of time. Don't do that. I don't want to see you on LinkedIn. I don't want to see you posting anything. I will say that most companies are very excited about their young professionals getting involved on LinkedIn, posting articles, reading and writing things. The way you make sure that it's of value is, number one, whatever company you work for, read their policy. You need to know their policy 100%. Number two, your willingness to actively engage. Thank you, Zachary. To actively engage is going to set you up for other opportunities. And what I mean by that is my willingness to present, my willingness to participate in LinkedIn has kind of made me an unofficial brand ambassador for RSNH. So when things come up, they ask me to share things. They reshare my posts. So it's really elevated me within an organization that is 1,400 people to be a little bit higher up. When people are looking at the organization, within the organization, they're seeing me a lot more than they may be seeing other people. So it really is important for your own elevation, for that awareness of who you are and what you're doing. Not a whole lot of engineers are really excited about posting, presenting. So I really turn to my younger engineers and I say, are you on LinkedIn? Get on there, post this, like this, post this, do this, and they're doing it. And to me, that's of great value, because I need them to be active, because that's where our clients are and that's what they're looking for. So you're going to meet quite a few individuals within an organization. You just have to find them. And more often it's going to be your business development marketing people who are going to embrace you protect you from those others that may not see the value or not want you to spend the time on doing those things, but are going to help mold you and create those opportunities for you to take advantage of and to help elevate yourself along the way. Did that answer your question, Eddie?
It did. Thank you. And I guess I wanted to capitalize on that by saying that, this may seem theoretical, but for our students, you should already be thinking about putting yourself out there as an asset. When you think about what you're researching, the projects that you're doing at school, those are all experiences on the technical side and on the skill side that should be reflected. Most of you will already have a resume as you're approaching, summer opportunities or the job market. But I find that this creates a precursor to what I would put forward in a job interview, and it gets me thinking about how to relate everything I've done, in a digital presence. So, students here, I hope you're really thinking about seeing yourself as an asset and how that asset needs a brand, so that this stuff seems more topical.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had it on the slide. I'll put my email in the chat box really quick. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn. So if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. And I know a lot of people say that, and some individuals, especially young professionals, are really hesitant to take advantage of that offer. And I just strongly suggest you to take advantage of every offer anybody gives you. If they say, I'll help you with your resume, take it. Just take it. Even if you don't think you need it, take it. Do it anyways, because you never know where that resume is going to end up. Because I guarantee you, every resume I've ever gotten through my door, if I think it's worth its salt, I pass it to friends, and I keep it within my organization and pass it to them as well, because you never know where you're going to find talent. So always make sure you keep that, keep an open mind when people are giving that advice or offering.
What about URLing yourself? At what point do you extend to creating a web page for yourself? And I think I own eddiegonzalez.com, but I haven't done anything with it.
I think it really depends on your goals. So when you're doing that branding sheet, and your ultimate goal is to be seen as the industry professional of environmental assessments of earth and dams, then you should probably do that. And you should be aware that that's going to require, presenting and doing a lot of virtual presentations or in-person presentations. It's going to require a lot of relationship building. It's definitely not something full-on somebody who identifies as an introvert would necessarily be very successful at. So it's really just dependent on what your goals are. I have always had it in my head that maybe I would do my own consulting service, but I've never gone out and bought Victoria.Mechtly.com because I don't, it's not really what I want. Like, it's kind of an idea, but when I went down and did my sheet, it's like, no, I don't want to be a consulting service. I want to work within a company. I want to work with a team, and I want to continue to elevate that team. So it's kind of like, well, that's not what I'm going to do. So when you're considering buying your own webpage or setting up your own webpage, it's all dependent on your goals. Now, I will say that I met a young environmental engineer that was just really introverted, did not do well in social situations, did not want to go to social situations. However, found out that U.S. Army Corps of Engineers has a blog. And so started blogging some ideas and concepts and sharing their knowledge, because they were very knowledgeable on the environmental topic that they were talking on, for wetlands specifically. They started participating on those blogs, and USACE reached out to them saying, who do you work for? How do we get you to help us with this challenge that we have? And they actually, as a young engineer, brought in work for their company, and that elevated them beyond anything else they could have done. So there are ways. You just have to find what works for you, and you have to find those outlets. So going out there and posting is definitely a way for you to set yourself apart and not have to do it in a social setting that may make you uncomfortable or may not be your jam.
Thanks. Yeah, I do know we had a couple of students from our George Mason student chapter. They created a technology that could be used by service members to detect trace gases of, in the battlefield. And so they LLC'd themselves right, even before they graduated, and had a bunch of things set up. So, I think it's one of those tools, just another tool to, like you said, if that's the level of presence you need, then, something people should go after. Otherwise, there are plenty of faults. Awesome. Thank you. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat.
I'll go ahead, and I actually just was thinking, so as we, you talked a lot about personal branding online, which is of course very relevant to what we've just gone through for the last year and a half. But hopefully as we start to go back to in-person events, and I'm thinking like, next year for JETSI, we'd love to get more of our student members there. Is there a way that, how would they approach a personal branding in person when they're may or may not, want to be handing out resumes, but is there something that they can do to set themselves apart or approach companies and sell themselves or start the conversation?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Andrea. Thank you. The personal branding in person is very much, again, your presence online. We talked a lot about that. Your presence in person needs to be reflective of the same thing. So whatever makes you confident, whatever it is that makes you you, do that, but for your audience. So I wear like high heels is kind of my thing. Like I am really confident when I'm wearing high heels. I'm already really tall, so it makes me even taller, and I love it. So that's kind of like a little bit about me. But I also am really passionate about specific topics, and to stay true to that, I always research those companies that are going to be there to know who I'm going to go talk to that align with my brand. If it's somebody that does, I'm not really passionate about architecture in general, like buildings, like this is not my thing. But I am passionate about, obviously, my company doing the aerospace engineering, and that has a lot of mechanical, and it has a lot to do with like the fuel farms and the different fuels you have to use and the infrastructure that goes with that when you're designing these launch structures. So I want to know what other companies and what other professionals do that so that I can learn something from them, and maybe they can learn something from me. Because when your brand, when you have those things you're focusing on, those are the communities you want to gravitate towards, and those are the people within the community that you want to talk to. And it kind of creates a launching off point as well. You can go up to somebody and say, hey, I'm really passionate about this. Can you tell me a little bit more about, and again, you're aligning your passion with what they do and what they know, and you're creating a relationship based on a genuine connection. It's not just the, hi, I'm such and such from this university, and I just thought I'd stop by and see your booth. It's so much more. So when you have that kind of about yourself organized, you leave such a strong impression. And then they're going to say, when you graduate, here's my card. You send me your resume. You let me know, because you're the type of person that we want on board. So those are the things that you're doing. You're taking your brand, you're taking those things you're passionate about, you're looking for those companies that are going to be there, and then you're going to seek out those people within that community that you care about to have those conversations, and you're going to develop relationships, meaningful relationships based on those things.
Yeah, I think that's I mean, it would work at career fairs as well, I think, but I don't know how many people realize that the various conferences that are out there, when we can, like I said, hopefully go back to them in person, the value of doing just what you said to make those connections and get yourself out there. It's the in-person, I think, equivalent of what you mentioned on LinkedIn, as far as putting yourself out there and your knowledge and getting yourself noticed and identified as somebody of interest. So
yeah. And I know I know people who always wear like crazy socks, and they're known for their crazy socks. That's just that's a fun part of their brand. but then that's the thing that people always remember about them. So it makes them more memorable because they're like, oh, that's the engineer, the road engineer that wears the crazy socks all the time. Like, we got to call that guy. He knows what he's doing. So it's doing those little things that kind of set you apart, and really push it. Like, again, so I'm going to tell a funny story. I emceed the SAME awards, and I wore some earrings that are like Native American style beaded. I made them, and like there were nothing but comments about my earrings for the first 2 minutes of the presentation, and I just thought it was interesting because I was like, this is part of my brand. It's just integrated into my image. So it's very much these things that you're doing that you're integrating into each other, and it gives you more confidence because it's like I feel like myself, but I feel like a better version of myself because these are the things that give me confidence. So I'm going to do these little things. And it's also conversation starters because I know a lot of really introverted engineers that use the crazy socks or the crazy tie or something like that, a magic trick to help introduce themselves to people to make it less awkward for them, to have people come talk to them. And it is to help their confidence, but it is very much part of their brand, whether they intended it to be or not, because that's what they're known for.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Dawn.
See, somebody remembers them, so that's wonderful.
Are there any other questions? I've gotten a private chat or two, just people who found it really helpful. So I'm so glad this has been helpful from the people that have commented. I'm serious. If you guys need help on your LinkedIn, reach out. I really am really happy to help any way I can. If you guys have something started on LinkedIn for me to help you with, that's better. Like than telling me I don't have a LinkedIn yet, help me. Start your LinkedIn and then we'll go from there. Get a professional photo. We all have that friend that takes really good photos. Find that friend, ask them to take a photo of you and have that be your LinkedIn profile photo.
Great. Well, I think I don't see any other comments and we're getting close to the hour. So let's end a few minutes early. And thanks, Victoria. Thanks, Andrea, for putting all this together. And
yes, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have been here.
Andrea had mentioned, don't forget for the students, registration to all our national conferences are always free. We just finished our big one. So we probably don't have anything too relatable just yet, but be on the lookout for any events that you see that might be of interest, and definitely jump in and register.
Right.
Otherwise,
yeah. I mean, so the small business conference is going to be in the fall, and even though it's titled Small Business Conference, it's still a good conference to go to. And I think timing wise, especially if you're I would assume a senior, or well, even just looking for interns or anything, internships. Could be a good place to go too. So, and that one right now, Eddie, is in person, correct, in Atlanta, scheduled?
Correct. Atlanta in November. Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely take advantage of those, and we still have to work out the details, but we're hoping to maybe have a career fair, and it'll probably, well, I assume it's going to be virtually, but we hope to have something for the virtual student chapter along those lines sometime early fall. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Victoria.
Thanks, everyone.
No problem. Thank you, guys.
Bye, all.